Welcome to Unlocked, the home of common sense that speaks Britain's language with me, Martin Daubney. Today's guest is Ben Bradley, MP for Mansfield. Ben was elected as a Conservative MP for the first time in 2017, and he calls himself the first brick in the blue wall at any chance he gets, basically, because soon after that, in 2019, the red wall completely collapsed across the Midlands and the North. Ben was a pioneer. Ben, welcome to Unlocked. So today, Ben, we are forwarding our campaign to unlock the schools. Ben Bradley, is that a campaign that you would back?
Firstly, have I told you about the blue wall?
Yes, you have.
No, look, I absolutely support the Unlock the Schools campaign. I think it's really important. We've had some kind of big push around it this week and in the media today to make this case to get schools reopened as quickly as we safely can. I think so many kids at the minute, particularly the most disadvantaged, particularly the most vulnerable kids, are missing out not just on education, but on that social element, on all sorts of really important developmental stuff at school, experiences that are vital. So the sooner we can get them back open and get as many kids that want to be in school back in school, the better.
Okay, so your front page of The Sun today, you've teamed up with Us for Them. They're a charity that we've supported since the beginning of the lockdown, doing great work. What does a route map back to schools achieving normality look like, Ben?
Well, this is the challenge, isn't it? Because it often comes down in the media, social media, to this really divisive argument of open them, don't open them. But actually, the conversation to me is how, right? What are the measures that need to go in and be put in place to make teachers feel safe, to make parents feel like kids can go back? And I think there are a few things. I mean, we'd rolled out a big testing program prior to the lockdown. There are a lot of schools have put in place to try and support, so regular testing for teachers, daily testing if you're kind of symptomatic or whatever, so we can help to manage the bubbles. But the other element, obviously, is the vaccinations. So I totally understand why, and it's right that we prioritise these vulnerable groups because we're trying to prevent those deaths, trying to stop those hospitalisations. But when we've done that and we've brought that mortality rate down, the next group surely has to be those frontline workers, people like teachers, so that we can get schools reopened and we can put in place as many supportive measures as we can to do that.
You mentioned teachers as the frontline workers who are vulnerable. Also, it's been proven by the ONS, there's fresh data out, I believe, today, saying that teachers are no more vulnerable, for example, than supermarket workers. So why can't we hear it more from the supermarket workers?
Well, I think, shout out to the supermarket workers. My wife works in Aldi, and I know she comes back and tells me some horror stories about the things that she has to deal with. And just in terms of, particularly trying to enforce these rules and regulations around masks and everything else, the amount of rage gets directed at supermarket workers as well as the health risk. I think so. Hats off to them. I think they are kind of unsung heroes, as we talk a lot about teachers and police officers and those kind of things, but less so about them. So, hats off to them. I think as far as teachers are concerned, there's a real problem here around a bit of fear mongering, to be honest, because as you said, the ONS data says that teachers are no more likely to get COVID than other frontline kind of facing workers like supermarket workers, like police officers. But that's not what the unions are pushing that. And we also know that if they do get it, they are much less likely, obviously, than those vulnerable groups that we're vaccinating to have serious illness, which is why the priority list is what it is. So I do think we need to get some real facts out there. And clearly nobody is safe. Clearly people who are going to work in these environments are more likely to get COVID than people who are staying at home. But actually, teaching is not a unique kind of scenario in terms of risk.
Okay, Ben, I'd just like to put some numbers to you here. You're precisely right. So the school union, teachers union, the NASUWT, put out a report claiming teachers were 330% more likely to get COVID, and the NEU union said they were twice as likely. That's clearly not true when you look at the actual numbers. Why are the unions making these bogus claims, Ben?
Well, it's really frustrating, isn't it? Because as I said, the official data, the ONS says that that's not the case, and that they are not more likely than the kind of anyone else who's going to work in similar environments. So you would think unions would be there to kind of put their members' minds at ease, to try and do what's best for them, and that to me would be, how do we get the right measures in place to support us going to work and to be able to support the kids as well as the staff. But actually, it's just been really politicised, hasn't it? It's been almost a case of an anti-government conversation in the end. We're going to shut schools unless you do X. which is not a healthy scenario at all, either for the teachers, who largely, in my experience, want to be at school, want the kids to be in school because they worry about the kids too. It's not conducive to a sensible conversation, is it?
As the son of a lifelong school teacher, and my missus is currently a TA, she's desperate to go back to school because she teaches special educational needs kids, a lot of them with autism. They're really, really struggling. They're really, really falling behind. Ben, surely this should not be about politics now. This should be about child protection and getting what's best for kids.
Absolutely, and you talk to teachers who will say exactly that, particularly on the child protection issue. Right, we all know not every home is a happy one. Not every kid lives in a safe and happy environment, and there are teachers really stressed about those children who maybe aren't quite on social services radar, but that they're vulnerable, and that they're going to have issues being at home without being able to set eyes on them. They're the kids that really suffer the most, I think, throughout all of this, as well as the educational inequality. So. Just massively important, and I hope and I wish that unions might get on board with trying to set out a roadmap to get these open as quickly as possible, rather than this political argument.
Do you think that that's doable? I mean, for example, if you offer the vaccine to teachers to try and appease their fears, do you think there is hope of harmony, or could we be heading for a 1970s style showdown with the unions over COVID?
Well, look, the idea that they've been able to kind of dictate policy on this to the extent that they have, I think, shows that there's too much power there from unelected officials effectively over this kind of decision. But there has to be, right, because I know that the vast majority of teachers, as I say, want kids back in schools. They want schools back fully reopened. We should say fully, because they are key workers and they're working hard. So there's got to be, and I know there's a statement UQ in the House tomorrow about this, so it's going to get discussed. All sides of the argument. To me, the message to the government is just, it's not a case of shall we or shan't we? We should, and we absolutely must. So let's just plan how best to do that.
And do you have a date, Ben Bradley, when you think the schools should be fully reopened in Great Britain?
To me, I mean, the conversation at the beginning was always about February half term, and we'll have this lockdown to February half term, and then we'll look after that. Clearly, the figures in terms of hospitalizations, the mortality rates lag behind the transmission of the virus. So we know that for a week or two now, the virus transmission has been falling quite significantly. Looking at the national stats for, I think last week, it was about 24% reduction in transmission. So in 4 or 5 weeks' time, that should be replicated when it comes to hospitalizations, when it comes to the rates of deaths. We've got time to vaccinate those vulnerable groups and to move on then to frontline workers. I think we should be looking to get them back after February half term, as we originally said.